Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our call today. Today, on Facebook Friday, we're going to talk about some of the differences between working as a freelancer offline and online. We get a lot of questions about that. And we'd like to welcome in both the people watching live and those of you who are watching on the playback. We find that most of our views are on the playback. We very much appreciate you coming and taking a listen and a look, and uh, appreciate the comments that you leave. We follow up on those comments, and that helps other people see these videos. So the first thing to think about, I guess, was when I was a kid, there was a person that lived near us that was a freelancer, and freelancer had kind of a pejorative tint to it, I guess you might say, because freelancers back then were considered basically somebody that couldn't hold down a job. That's what my mother explained to me. This person that, all the dads in the neighborhood went off to work every morning, but this one dad stayed at home. And this is, back in the late 50s, early 60s. And, just natural kid curiosity, trying to figure out what's that all about. And it was deemed to be not a very honorable thing to be doing in some respects. And of course, the word freelancer comes from, I believe it's medieval times, when different countries and different people that own large property, they would hire people, almost like hiring security guards, but they would hire an army to work with them on as a freelance. They literally had a lance, a weapon that they would use to protect themselves. So freelancing has made quite the transition over the years. And, a little bit of that negativity still persists among a lot of baby boomers. I see Christopher's coming in. How you doing, Christopher? Good to see you down in San Diego at the Hotel Del there. Many fond memories of my days in San Diego. And yes, you're free to lance anybody you want. Yes, this could be a solution for a medical condition as well. If you have a boil, that's a great thing to lance. And so freelancers are now coming into their own. They're working online. In the old days of freelancing, and I'm talking about really up until about 10 years ago, freelancing really was a very odd occupation in many ways, especially online freelancing. It was an area reserved mostly for people who were technical people. And when we started talking about online freelancing 13, 14 years ago, people were saying, well, isn't that for programmers? Isn't that for people that manage network systems? Isn't that for people who do databases and that kind of thing? And it was up until maybe about 10, 12, 15 years ago. And then gradually into those networks where all these programmers and database guys were working, you'd start to see people that would offer to do proofreading. They would offer to write an article, that kind of thing. And that really began the move of what I call soft skills and skills for everybody onto these large networks. And so lots of interesting evolution along the way. Now, as we sit here in 2021 in April, some of the networks have performed enormously well, and one of the reasons the online freelance networks have performed so well is the old way of freelancing was to go out and if you were starting to freelance, you'd get your business cards printed up. You'd maybe send emails to people who you thought might be somehow able to hire you. You would go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, business meetings, social group meetings, that kind of thing. Try to engage people in conversations, pass out your business cards, all those things. In fact, that's how I started my freelancing business in 2000 in the year 2000, and that's what I was doing. And that's I remember the pain of that and having awkward conversations in sweaty palms trying to explain what I was doing and why I wasn't doing the thing I was doing and all that kind of stuff. And freelancing wasn't such a thing that back then. So if you think about what the freelancer would do is they'd print up business cards, they'd go out to the Chamber of Commerce, for example, they'd engage a few people in conversations, tell them what they're able to do for them, which is kind of an awkward place to start from the get-go. And then they would go ahead and run down one or two people that said, well, maybe you can help me submit a proposal. And then I know in the early days, I would work for a week or two on a proposal. I'd spend 2 or 3 hours talking to the potential client, understanding their business so I could make a coherent proposal. And then always when I gave them the proposal, they would say, oh, that costs too much. And I would explain why it didn't cost too much. And when they looked at the overall benefit of what they were getting, it really made sense. And it's costing them much more than that not to do something in the consulting realm. And so it kind of went like that. And there was a lot of uncertainty along the way and a lot of awkwardness and a lot of frustration. And the really amazing aspect of these project networks today is that the buyer has already decided what specific job they want you to do. Very different than when I was starting out and trying to convince a buyer that I had some services to offer that could be of help with them. So in the online networks, and these are networks like Upwork, Freelancer.com, Just Answer, Fiverr. There's over 150 networks out there. Many, estimated there's about 500,000 jobs available every single day on these freelance networks. The great thing about that is that your network is a large database, and they're able to neatly organize all those jobs. I just want to say good morning, good afternoon to Bob coming in from Roatan, where he does some amazing diving. I saw your shark photograph, very impressive on Facebook. So people ought to head over there and take a look at some of your photography. It's just stunning. So these databases very neatly organize jobs, and they are jobs that buyers are ready to assign to pay for freelancers to start work right now. It's not the question of, as a freelancer, you have to figure out what the job's going to be and write a proposal and convince the person to spend the money. In this case, you go in, and if you want to do proofreading jobs, on any given day on the Upwork network, you'll see 3,000 to 5,000 proofreading jobs. Some of those are tiny. It might be proofread my resume. Others are massive. I want you to spend 9 months working with me on a book and proofreading, correcting, editing, that kind of thing. Thousands of dollars kind of jobs. But the important thing is that when you get up in the morning, you don't have a cup of coffee and then head out the door to go shake some hands and figure out what's going on. You sit down at a computer and you see 3,000 jobs there that might be ready for you to do. And when you get up and head out the door, you're talking to people basically in your local market, in your local area. When you go onto one of these online networks, these networks are global networks, 30, 40, 50, in some cases, 60% of the activity of these networks is outside the US and Canada and Australia and the UK. So there are people in countries that are looking to find a way to penetrate English-speaking markets because they're most lucrative. And Christopher has a good question. Is it more profitable to have an online business rather than doing freelancing gigs? It's interesting. I used to edit obituaries for a magazine. I can't imagine doing editing for unique jobs. Okay, this is a popular misconception, and this speaks directly to the point. the online businesses, people are very statistically very unsuccessful at doing online businesses because they have to create a website. Once they create the website, it says it's just like you going to a virtual chamber of commerce meeting. You're sitting out there, you're online, you've got your best picture of you, maybe in a suit and tie, and you've paid a copywriter to write great things about you, and it looks great. The problem is there's no traffic to your website. There's nobody that can get to your website. So a big part of what you do with a website, with an online business, is oriented around promotions and getting up and what we would call in days past dialing for dollars and that kind of thing. And so the idea of an online freelancer is you don't have to create that traffic. The analogy I like to use is if you were going to build a store, and this is a little bit what setting an online business is all about, kind of. It's like you're building a store. You're building a place where people can come in learn about your services. Hey, Tom, good to see you there. Great. So you build a store. Now, most people have their store in either a mall or an office building because people like to go there. They wouldn't, for example, go out and build their store in the middle of the desert. And that's exactly what every online person does when they set up a website and think, oh, great, I've got my website done. I can relax now because the business is going to flow in. The reality of it is nobody finds your website unless you know how to build traffic. And there's things you can do on social media, and there's things that you can do on podcasts and that kind of thing. But these are very time intensive. And one of the things, I used to have a boss many years ago who was kind of I don't know what you'd call, maybe a drifter might be a kind of the word. He was very responsible, very skilled, but he just liked traveling around. He'd go to one city and live there for 2 or 3 years, and then go to another city and live there for 2 or 3 years, and sometimes just pull up stakes and go. He was single, and it was easy for him to do. And he said, if you want to start making money when you get to a new town, the best thing to do is to go down and get a job driving a taxi because they pay you at the end of the day. So obviously, this is a long time ago, but that's what works. Online freelancing is kind of the equivalent of that taxi in that you don't have to build a website. You don't have to think about what strategy you're going to use really for your website. You just have to think about the skills you have, and then you let the active freelance buyers find you. You have literally thousands to millions of people to talk to on these online networks. And so there are people that are at the point where they have described a job. It's like a bulletin board. Here's what I need done. Tell me, what are your qualifications and how much would you charge me? And they're going to look at 10 or 20 people are going to give a price, show them their qualifications, and then they're going to come along and select one of those people, and they're going to get the job. And typically freelancing jobs within 3 days to a week, that you've got this job or you don't. I mean, it's that fast, and that's one of the great things about that. So yes, it's as Christopher says here, simple is best. You don't have all that, as a friend of mine used to say, kabuki dance of trying to figure out what you can possibly do for somebody, how you can do it, how it fits in. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And I find that particularly for baby boomers, and this is key to the people that we work with, is they want to earn a relatively modest amount. They are not I need to earn $100,000 a year doing this thing. If they can make $500 to $1,500 a month doing something and working a day and a half a week, that's pretty exciting for them. Or 2 or 3 hours a day in the mornings on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or whatever it might be. That more fits the baby boomer lifestyle. They have some retirement potentially, maybe some Social Security few $1,000s a month. I just did a report on this and went through all the numbers, but I think the average Social Security recipient couple is getting 2,300, something like that. And so you add another $1,000, $1,500 on that, and that's you have a little bit more control over your own destiny. You have a little bit more money in the budget, and particularly if you're living abroad or moving abroad or contemplating that, or even traveling abroad, for that kind of money you can live extremely well all over Latin and South America, in many parts of Europe, certainly in parts of Southeast Asia. On a third that you can have amazing things, and that's one of the things that people don't realize when they move abroad is the affordability of certain things, like having a housekeeper is something that just completely transformed my life, moving from the United States, because all of a sudden you just don't have to think about certain kinds of housekeeping activities. I mean, my person in Huatulco is like a part of the family. She's been with us for 8.5 years, I think. She cooks food. I've described things. She cooks things I like to eat, and does the shopping and takes great pride in that, and does a fabulous job. And so that's one of the kinds of things that just completely transforms what's possible. And in fact, I don't think I could have started this business if I didn't have that kind of support in my life to take care of the other things that need to get done. So these networks, you have neatly organized jobs. You go in, you bid on. The great thing about bidding on these jobs, when I would write a proposal, it would take me at least 10 hours to write a good proposal for a client, and usually the jobs were between $10,000 and $20,000, so it makes sense to do that. But these are quick things, and the important thing is these are jobs that baby boomers can get started with, and that's something that's very appealing to baby boomers. We don't want to go back to the 40 or 60-hour work week and having to do everything the boss wants us to do and do it exactly the way the boss wants it to do and all that kind of stuff. We're not looking to bring a lot of stress in our life. And this is one of the things to understand from a positioning standpoint. When you work for a company as an employee, your boss is the boss. Relative position, you're, down here and they're up there. And, pretty much you're going along with what they want you to do. When you're a freelancer on one of these online networks, you're a peer. They are a business person typically that has a problem to solve, and you represent a business person that that has the ability to solve that problem. And so it's a more peer-to-peer relationship. And frankly, this is one of the challenges we have for many people that have lived in corporate life for many years, is they have to get unshackled from that concept, of being subservient really to the boss. And I know there was I don't know if it's true. A lot of these stories are sort of apocryphal, I guess you'd call it. But there's this thought that if you take some fleas and you put them in a jar and you put the lid on the jar, that the fleas, who could easily jump out if the lid wasn't on the jar, after a day or two, they realize that there's a ceiling there and they don't jump out of they can't get out of the jar. Well, if you take the lid off after 2 or 3 days, the fleas never get out of the jar because they're just used to jumping that high, and they don't think they can jump higher, even though they certainly could now that the lid's been removed. So that's kind of what what's going on with that, and that's why these networks are so powerful. And yes, as Christopher's mentioning here, many of us wrote big proposals over our lives, and took a lot of time, and it took a lot of customer management, a lot of prospect finessing, making sure that the client was happy with what you were doing all through the process. And while some of those same kind of relationships develop online, in fact, maybe more so, uh, there's more of, let's get down to business. Let's look at what the job is. And there were so many times that I would talk to potential clients, some of them that would even, sort of invite me in. They want to have a call with me and talk about how I might be able to help them. And they would uh, they were looking for a way to do business, but they never really kind of were able to articulate exactly what they wanted done, even with my probing and questioning and that kind of thing. And that's the great thing about these online networks, is there's a job description of one kind or another of what they need done, and it's not a job as much as it's an assignment. The great thing about, once you do a few of these assignments for a freelancer, is that they're auditioning you. Most freelance buyers go into these networks with the idea that I want to find a person that I can hire to do this kind of work, through the freelance network, that I can use on an ongoing basis. It still takes time to write the job description on their part. Once they find somebody who works well with them, who understands their company, their processes, that kind of thing, they bring that person in and they give them a little tiny job, maybe something that would take an hour or two. And they want to see how that person does with the job. And, in fact, some cases, freelance buyers will give the exact same job to 5 different folks, and then they will select one of those folks to be their go-to person for proofreading or article writing or whatever that is. And the best way to figure out whether somebody's a good fit for you is give them a little tiny job and find out, can they do proofreading? Can they write an article about the topic that we have? That sort of thing. So that's kind of what happens. And as Christopher mentions again here, very good comment, that there's way too much hand-holding. There's wondering, did they get the proposal? Did they read the proposal? Now you can see in some cases whether they open the email or not, but there's always that question: should I call the prospect? Should I wait another day? Should I, all that kind of stuff. And the great thing about these online systems is you just get sort of immediate status of what's going on. You can see if the job's been awarded or not, or whether it's still the buyer's still considering alternatives or that kind of thing. So very good. So big differences between working online as a freelancer and freelancing in the old days. And even with email, I mean, certainly if a freelancer is working online, let's say they're a copywriter or something like that, they're sending emails out to people that need copywriting, but where do you get that list? Basically, you can't get the list. This freelancing to a degree is kind of an insider's game, and nobody's going to let you in their office. They don't do the equivalent of flinging the door open and say, all right, I'm going to let 100 freelancers in here and see if any of them can write. They turn to these networks where they can more carefully select people. They can look to see what your past experience is. They can look to see some examples of your writing. They can look to see your background, what companies you work for, that kind of thing. This is all information you control, by the way. You choose what to put in there and what not to put in there. But the great thing about baby boomers is usually they have 30 or 40 years experience doing something. And in freelancing, it's very much an experience game. I mean, it's a little bit like airline pilots. You won't want the most experienced person flying in the captain's seat. And when a freelance buyer is hiring a freelancer, they don't want to take somebody who might be 20 years old and not know how to really manage their schedule and organize their work and that kind of thing. They want somebody that's been doing this for 30 years and just automatically knows how to make a to-do list, how to keep things moving, how to sense when things might be a little off track and engage that conversation to get them back on track versus waiting a longer time to until there's a train wreck and it's a lot harder to put back together. So lots of different things to consider about working online. One of my favorite quips from a friend of mine. It's a smart guy, retired from technology work, so he kind of should know about this. Is he says, well, gee, how much can that be paying? That's just a closet sort of industry, right? It's not very big. And if you go online and take a look at, just Google Upwork stock price, you'll see the company Upwork, which is the primary freelance platform we use as our teaching example, that last year they paid about $2.7 billion out to freelancers. And that's pretty impressive. It's now, I think, it's just moved ahead of major industries in the U.S. There's more money paid to freelancers than there is money paid for construction in the United States. So that's how pervasive it is. And there was an article just recently that talked about if it added up all the freelancers around the world, it estimated there's about 200 million online freelancers around the world. And as a country, that would be the 8th largest country in the world. If you add up their economic earnings, they would be the 4th largest country in the world. So some very interesting statistics on that. So with that, happy to answer any questions you might have. Happy to appreciate a like if you found this information helpful or useful in any way. And always love the loves. And I see we got a few loves going along there. So appreciate that as well. Lots of good things are getting ready to happen in the freelance world as we come out of this. Yes, there's 200 million freelancers today, and there's going to be, over the next 10 years, another 200 million freelancers. So it is quite a growing segment of the workforce. It's a great way to get things done. As companies and organizations get back to work after the pandemic, you're going to see lots of companies will not be hiring their full employee workforce back or bringing them back for lots of different reasons. They'll be using a combination of employees and freelancers. And freelancers give them that flexibility to raise and lower their expense structure through the peaks and valleys of the year. And most businesses have ups and downs from time to time in nature. We call that in economic analysis seasonality to the business. Many businesses make 60-70% of their income during the Christmas season, kind of from Thanksgiving to Christmas, that kind of thing. And it just makes sense as a business person to staff up so you have lots of people, and when you need lots of people, and to pare back. And that same concept applies across the board. So yes, and as Christopher points out, this is a major trend. Just read an article on this, is that some massive companies, like I think it was JP Morgan Chase, who was the other one? There was maybe Charles Schwab. Number of companies have rethought their business model now that they've had a year's worth of experience of people working from home, and they realize that they don't need they don't need as big an office in the middle of the city as they thought they needed. You know, a lot of them are still have offices and still have a presence and still have a place you can walk into, but many of them have released office space in big hunks because they're going to a new model where people can work remotely. There's no real value added by housing all those people. And there's the aggravation factor for the people that work in your company. They have to get on uh, on a freeway, on a subway, on a something. They're commuting in and out on average half an hour each way. They have to have a whole wardrobe for work. You know, you certainly can dress much more informally. I was joking to somebody the other day that I was thinking about coming out with a new line of clothes for freelancers, you know, and it's kind of from the waist up. We're going to dress you up, and then you can be a little more informal from the waist down, because that never shows up on the Zoom, hopefully, and or on the online. So no longer as great a concern. Companies were forced to trust the process, but they didn't. But now they've learned from that, and they're going to be doing that. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for your participation today. Look forward, for those of you that are our members, to seeing you on Tuesday night. Lots of fun coming this Tuesday night. So we'll see you there. We're doing a special event, and we've sent you an email about that. You got one Wednesday and one today. So if you didn't see it, be sure and look in your spam folder and pluck that out of there, and make sure we're on your list. Yeah, Tom is actually saying that Google, Facebook, and Twitter have downsized big time in San Francisco. That's consistent with that article that I read. And that's an interesting calculation. Add up your commuting time in 24 years, and you commuted for a total of a year. That's a lot of time. That's, we all figured out different ways to use that time, thank goodness. But but it's a lot of extra work, and it's an extra car for many people, and it's an extra insurance bill for car insurance for many people, and a gas bill, and all those kind of things. And thanks, Christopher, for your kind words. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while, but enjoy your Instagram. Take a peek at that every now and then. Love your photographs of the harbor in San Diego. Brings back old times. And Tom, New York City. I had the opportunity on a couple of occasions in my career to work for an extended time, like 2 or 3 months in New York City. I just love that place. It was easy to get around, fun to hang out, lots of people, and at least for the next period of time, that New York City doesn't live there anymore. So looking forward to seeing that. So very good. All right. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. If not on our Tuesday night call, we'll see you on next Friday for another Facebook Live. Take care.